My name is Darren Cole. I believe that stability meant love. I worked, I provided, I came home, I stayed. That used to be enough. We were married for 7 years. No children, no chaos, just quiet. The kind of quiet people envy from the outside and misunderstand completely from the inside. Her name is Melina. She was beautiful in a patient, controlled kind of way. The kind of woman who smiled at waiters, tipped in exact percentages, and always folded her sweaters before putting them in drawers. Everything she did felt intentional. Even the distance. It started gradually like most decay. She told me one night, over lentil soup and herbal tea, that she needed space. Not from me, just in general. More space to think, she said, to breathe, to feel like a person again. I nodded, because what do you say to that? I assumed it would pass. She quit her job 2 weeks later, told me her boss had become toxic and she couldn't take the environment anymore. I didn't ask many questions. Just shifted the numbers on our budget spreadsheet. Canceled our upcoming trip. Took on a weekend shift at the warehouse. She joined a yoga studio, then a meditation group, then something called a breathwork intensive. All of it under the banner of self-healing. It wasn't cheap, but I told myself it was temporary. She'd find clarity, then find something stable again. And I'd keep things running until she did. That's what a good husband does, right? I'd wake up at 4:45, be out the door by 5:30. Work until dark, come home to soft music playing in the living room, lemon tea steeping on the counter, and no one to drink it. She started disappearing on weekends. Retreats, she called them. 2-night stays in converted farmhouses, with sound baths and guided journaling. I paid for all of it. The mortgage, the car insurance, the groceries, even her subscription boxes, skincare kits, and dried mushrooms from places I couldn't pronounce. One Friday night, I got home late and found a sticky note on the fridge. She used a Sharpie with a heart dotting the I. Gone early, be back Sunday, don't forget to breathe. I stood there for maybe 5 minutes, staring at it. Fridge still open, key still in my hand. It wasn't the trip, it was the tone. That kind of sweetness doesn't come from guilt. It comes from detachment, from believing you have nothing left to lose. I didn't text her, didn't ask where she went. I just set the note down beside the sink and started packing my next day's lunch. I added 2 more shifts that week. No one asked why. One of the supervisors, Keith, made a joke about how I was either saving for a yacht or hiding from a fight. I told him I was just trying to pay something off. That part was true. The house was still under a mortgage, but manageable. We'd put her name on nothing. She never liked documents, said they made her feel trapped. So I took care of the accounts, the utilities, the deed, everything in my name. She said she trusted me. Ironic. By the end of that month, I'd made 4 extra payments. Quietly, didn't mention them, didn't change our spending habits, just trimmed where I could, sold a few things, fixed the water heater myself instead of calling a guy. And every time she left for a weekend, I stayed. Worked, paid, slept on the side of the bed that used to be mine now, just closer to the wall. She didn't ask how work was anymore. Didn't ask if I'd eaten, or slept, or needed anything. She used to. Not out of passion, but out of rhythm. Now the rhythm had faded. She still kissed me on the cheek before leaving. Still signed her notes M. Still smiled when I handed her cash for the car detail or the yoga props. But I could tell, I didn't know what exactly, but I could tell something had left the room a long time ago, and I'd been sleeping next to the echo. Some betrayals arrive quietly, not in screaming, not in text messages, but in watermarks and shadows. It started with a glass, a tall one, still half full, still warm, left on the bathroom sink. I came home late that night. She'd already gone to sleep or pretended to. The lights were off in the hallway, but the bathroom door was cracked. I went in to wash up, and there it was. A clear glass Faint fog on the inside, lip marks on the rim. Not hers. The pattern was too wide, too careless. Melina always used the short ceramic mug for nighttime water. She said cold water made her throat tighten. This glass wasn't hers, and it hadn't been sitting long. I stood there in the dark for a minute, then turned on the faucet and rinsed it without a word. That should have been enough. But once you see something, you start seeing everything. The second toothbrush in the drawer, the damp towel on the guest bed, even though she said no one had stayed over, the faint scent of cologne that didn't belong to me, musky, artificial, a little too young. She started showering more before I got home. Changed the sheets twice in a week. She never used to change the sheets unless it was Sunday. Her phone was always face down. Her texts got shorter, drier. Sometimes she didn't respond at all. When I asked how her retreat went, she just said, quiet. Then looked back down at her tea like I'd interrupted something sacred. I stopped asking. I just worked, ate, slept. That's what kept me useful, I told myself. That's what kept the house warm. That's what men do. But the silence started to rot. And so, one Thursday, I stopped at an electronics store on my way home. $38. Small indoor security cam. No audio, motion activated. I told the cashier it was for my garage. I installed it in the bookshelf across from the front door. Blended it into the shadows behind a row of travel books we never read. I didn't check the footage for weeks. Didn't want to. Didn't know what I was hoping to see. Maybe nothing. Maybe proof I was just tired and paranoid. But then came the night she said she was going to the spa with her friend Zoe. Said she'd be gone overnight. Left around 5 p.m. I kissed her on the forehead. Told her to drive safe. Watched her car disappear down the road. I waited until midnight. Then opened the app. The motion log showed activity at 7:12 p.m. I tapped the clip. The door opened. She walked in, alone. At first, she looked relaxed, comfortable, like someone returning to something familiar. A minute later, he followed. Tall, athletic build, too casual for someone who just stopped by. He didn't hesitate, didn't look around, just dropped his keys on the counter like he'd done it before. I watched them talk, laugh. She touched his arm. He poured whiskey into 2 glasses, mine, from the top shelf. They moved out of frame toward the hallway. Bedroom door clicked shut. That was it. No screaming, no confirmation, no lipstick-stained collars, no sloppy hotel receipts. Just her, in our house, in my absence, drinking my whiskey, walking barefoot across the rug I vacuumed last week, taking someone else into the bed I still paid for. I closed the app, didn't save it, didn't download, didn't even breathe for a full minute. Then I opened the calculator app on my phone and ran the numbers. Mortgage balance, extra payments made, remaining time if I accelerated my plan by another $400 a month, if I cut back, if I stretched every hour, if I stopped replacing what I'd already learned to live without, I could finish it by the end of the year, 6 months, maybe less. She wouldn't notice. And when she did, I'd be done pretending this was still a marriage. There's something final about silence. Not the kind that comes from peace, the kind that follows a decision. After I watched them walk into the bedroom, I didn't check the footage again. Didn't rewatch, didn't rewind. It was enough. I didn't need confrontation. I didn't want confession. I just needed the truth once. Clean, undeniable, quiet. I remember standing at the kitchen sink that morning, washing the coffee pot. Her mug was still in the drying rack, pink ceramic, chipped handle. She always drank chamomile before bed, said it helped her sleep. She must have slept well that night. She looked rested when she came home. I asked how the spa went. She smiled slow, practiced, tired. Relaxing, she said. Then kissed my cheek like she hadn't let another man touch her skin 12 hours earlier. I didn't flinch, didn't pull away, just looked at her like she was a stranger borrowing my house. She didn't notice. That's when I realized she wasn't pretending. She really believed I'd never find out. That I was too focused on work, too quiet, too passive. That men like me don't ask questions until it's too late. But I already had my answer. And I already had my plan. That night, she fell asleep before I came to bed. I stood in the doorway for a while, watching her breathe. She curled toward the wall, knees tucked, like a child, like someone who had never done anything wrong. The room smelled like lavender, like it always did. The windows were open just a crack, enough to let in the breeze. I stared at the bed, our bed, and thought about all the things I didn't say. I didn't ask who he was. Didn't ask how long it had been. Didn't ask why. Because it didn't matter. I wasn't going to fix it. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to finish what I started. The next day, I increased my payments. 2 bi-weekly drafts instead of 1. I adjusted the budget, dropped the meal plan, canceled a subscription or 2, stopped using the dryer, hung my clothes outside instead. Every dollar went into that house. Every hour I worked now had purpose. She thought I was pulling away. She said I felt distant. I told her I was tired. She nodded, didn't look up from her phone. That month, she stayed out 4 weekends in a row. Didn't even bother pretending it was retreats anymore. She said she was visiting a friend from college who was going through something. I said, hope she gets through it. She packed light, left early, came back glowing. I didn't talk to anyone about it. Not my coworkers, not my brother, not even my accountant. This wasn't about advice. This wasn't about feelings. This was about timing, about math. The payoff schedule tightened. I brought my own lunch every day, filled the gas tank only halfway, paused contributions to my retirement account. By month 5, the balance was under $11,000. By month 6, it was just over 4. She asked if we could take a trip after summer. Said we hadn't been anywhere together in a long time. I said we'd see. She smiled, then kissed me again. I didn't feel it. Not really. But I didn't move away either. I let her keep lying because I needed her to stay exactly where she was until I was ready. On the day I made the final payment, she was in the shower. I clicked confirm at 6:41 a.m. The screen flashed green. Mortgage balance, $0. No confetti, no fanfare, just a clean number and a timestamp. I took a screenshot, printed the document, slipped it into a folder next to the divorce papers I'd had drafted last fall unsigned, until now. She came out wrapped in a towel. Smelled like eucalyptus. Asked if I wanted tea. I said no. She looked confused for a second, then nodded, and walked out of the room like nothing had changed. But everything had. There's a kind of power in knowing who signed what. Melina never liked paperwork. I used to think it was just personal that she was anxious about fine print, overwhelmed by forms. She'd say things like, "You're better at this," or "You handle the adult stuff." She said it with a smile, and I took that as trust. But now I know it was laziness or strategy, because if your name's not on the paper, you're not responsible. And later, you're not entitled. We bought the house 2 years into our marriage. I handled the financing. She picked the paint colors. At closing, she didn't want to sit through the full appointment. She waited in the car while I signed the documents. I still remember what she said that day. "I don't need to be on it, Darren. We're married. What's yours is mine anyway." It sounded innocent back then. A shared life, a shared future. Now, those words mean something else. They mean I expect the benefit, but not the burden. I still had the files. All of them. The loan, the purchase agreement, the title, all with one name. Mine. She never questioned it. Never brought it up. She was too busy working on herself to ask what was legally hers. She thought a ring was enough. Thought a smile could co-sign. It couldn't. When I made the last mortgage payment, I printed the statement. Zero balance. Confirmed. Then I called the bank, asked for a lien release and full ownership letter. Took 5 minutes. The woman on the phone congratulated me, said most people never reach that point. I thanked her, but I wasn't most people. I didn't pay off that house for pride. I paid it off so I could be the only one left standing. I walked into the guest room, pulled out the drawer from the bottom cabinet. Inside was the folder, divorce papers, prepped 6 months earlier. I delayed them until the house was mine. I added the lien release, tucked it right on top. Then I flipped through the documents, slow and steady. She'd get nothing from the house. No equity, no payout. In our state, anything acquired before marriage or held in one name without contribution stays separate. And she hadn't contributed in years. Not financially, not emotionally, not honestly. She'd left the marriage long before I filed. I signed the bottom line, initialed the corners, left her signature lines untouched. I didn't print copies, didn't staple anything. Just slid it all into a flat manila envelope and set it aside. She was out that night, said she had a book club, but I knew she wasn't reading. I stayed up, cleaned the kitchen, wiped down the counters. At 11:24 p.m. she texted, "Don't wait up, staying over at Zoe's." I didn't reply, just placed the envelope in the center of the kitchen table. Beside it, I laid the deed, highlighted, one name. She'd see it when she came back. No alarms, no fights, just paper. Paper she never cared about until now. I went to bed alone, slept through the night without dreaming. When I woke up, her purse was on the counter. She hadn't touched the envelope, but she would. You don't come home to documents like that and ignore them forever. You open them and realize the moment you stop paying attention was the moment someone else started preparing. She didn't open the envelope right away. She saw it, I know she did. The kitchen light was still on when I left for work the next morning. The papers were still where I left them, but her purse was gone. That was her way of pretending nothing had changed. Delay, avoid, reset. She'd done it for years. Anytime things got uncomfortable, anytime I asked too much, or stopped asking altogether. That night, she made dinner, set the table, lit a candle, like it was just another Tuesday, like I hadn't put an end to all of it 12 hours earlier. She said nothing about the documents. I didn't bring them up. She asked about my day. I said, it was quiet. She smiled and poured more wine. I didn't drink any. It took her 2 more days. Friday morning, she was still in her robe when I came back from the early shift. The envelope was open. The papers were on the table. She didn't look angry. Didn't look heartbroken. She looked confused. "You're divorcing me?" she said. I didn't answer right away. Just hung my keys on the hook, took off my boots, poured a glass of water. Then I said, "I already did. You just hadn't seen it yet." She sat down. Didn't cry, didn't yell. That's what surprised me most. She ran her fingers over the deed, the copy I'd left, clear as glass. The bank letter was clipped to it now. One name, she said quietly. She didn't ask why, just stated it, like she was noticing whether. I nodded. "You always said we'd share everything," she whispered. "We did," I said, "until you stopped showing up." She folded the corner of one page, tapped it once. "You know I've been going through something," she said. I looked at her, calm, cold. The way you look at someone making excuses after the crime scene's already been cleaned. "You brought another man into this house." She opened her mouth. I raised a hand, not loudly, just enough to stop whatever line she thought she'd say. "Not once, not by accident, not in weakness. You planned it, repeated it, and you knew I wouldn't fight." She blinked, swallowed, looked away. Why didn't you say anything? That made me pause, because there were too many answers to that. Too many nights I could point to, too many quiet mornings, too many receipts. But instead, I said, because I wanted the house first. She didn't speak for a long time. I left her there, at the table. Same table where I used to leave her grocery money. Same table where she used to tell me about her yoga teacher and the women she connected with. I went into the bedroom, started folding my clothes. She followed, watched from the doorway. What happens now? She asked. I turned to her. No screaming, no lawyers, just signatures. She crossed her arms. You're not even angry? I shook my head. Anger's expensive. I'm paid up. That weekend, she stayed in the guest room. Didn't leave the house. Didn't text anyone. The silence between us wasn't tense. It was resigned. Two people sitting in the aftermath of something neither wanted to admit was already over. I gave her time. She gave me space. It was the most honest we'd been in years. She came to me on the third night. Not with tears. Not with begging. Just a look that said she wanted the last word even if it was too late. I was on the porch, sitting in the old folding chair. The sun was going down, street quiet, sky empty. She stood in the doorway for a long time before she said anything. Then, I didn't plan for it to happen. I didn't look at her. Didn't invite her to sit. She sat anyway. The cushion beside me creaked like it hadn't been used in years. Because it hadn't. She crossed her arms, like she was cold. It wasn't. It was July. I just felt invisible, she said. I didn't recognize myself anymore. Everything became so predictable. I nodded once. She took that as permission to go on. You were always working, always tired. I didn't know how to reach you. I let her speak, because I wanted to know how far she'd go. If she'd say his name, if she'd tell the truth, if she'd ask for forgiveness, or just permission to feel better. She didn't do any of that. Instead, she said, I think I just needed to feel wanted again. It was strange watching someone confess to betrayal like it was a symptom. Like cheating was a side effect of being misunderstood. I let the silence stretch. Let her feel it. I didn't think you'd ever leave me, she said. You're not the type. That was the first honest sentence she'd said all week. I turned to her then, looked her dead in the eyes. You're right, I said. I'm not the type to storm out. I'm the type who finishes what I start. She blinked. The type who waits, who pays every bill, who carries the weight until it's done. She opened her mouth maybe to defend herself, maybe to rewrite the timeline. I cut her off. And I finished. The house, the marriage, you. She stood up. For a moment, I thought she might scream. She didn't. She just looked down at me like I'd become someone she didn't recognize. Did you ever love me? She asked. I could have answered gently, could have given her something soft to hold on to. But I didn't. Instead, I said, I loved who you pretended to be. She walked inside, closed the screen door behind her without a word. I stayed outside for another hour, listening to the stillness, letting the truth settle across the floorboards of the house I now owned clean. The same house she used to walk barefoot in. The same floors I once polished before her retreats. All of it quiet now. All of it mine. She moved out on a Tuesday. Quietly, no boxes, just bags. I didn't help her pack. She didn't ask. She started with the bathroom, her creams, her oils, her endless glass jars of serums, then her closet, then the jewelry drawer she thought I'd never opened. I had once, a long time ago, before I stopped caring what she wore when she left the house. She didn't take much, only what mattered to her. None of it came from me. The night before she left, she asked if we could eat together one last time. I said yes. We sat across from each other at the same table we'd once used for anniversary dinners and Sunday morning pancakes. Now it held a bowl of rice, one fork, and silence. She didn't speak until the end. "I thought we'd be different," she said. I nodded. We were. She stood at the doorway before she left. Keys in her hand, no tears, just fatigue. I didn't hug her. Didn't wish her well. Didn't lie. She lingered like she wanted to say something final, something that would make her feel less like the villain in her own story. But I didn't give her the chance. I closed the door behind her before she could finish the breath. The house was quiet after that. Still, I walked from room to room that night, touching walls, opening windows, breathing. She left one drawer open in the guest room. Empty. I left it that way. A reminder that space like trust once emptied rarely feels the same way again. The next morning, I rekeyed the locks. Not out of fear, out of clarity. I changed the Wi-Fi, cleared the shared calendar, canceled the streaming account, all the small strings we leave tied between ourselves and people who no longer love us. I opened the deed again, held it in my hands. My name, only mine. No annotations, no attachments, no obligations. I filed it away beside the divorce decree. Then I poured myself a black coffee. Saturday at the kitchen table, same spot as before. Same sunlight, same mug, but the weight was gone. People think revenge is loud, that it involves shouting, destruction, some kind of cinematic eruption. It doesn't. Not if you do it right. Sometimes revenge is a balance sheet. Sometimes it's a clean title and an empty room. And sometimes it's just a man drinking coffee in a house she thought she'd own forever. Alone, but not abandoned. Just free.